Hi, my name is Callie and thank you for joining me on this video about risk assessment. This is a video as part of my series of videos called the Go Fight Win Novice Debate series that is geared at teaching novices how to policy debate. So, quick introductions. My name is Callie again. I'm a debater for the University of Michigan, and in high school I debated for Traverse City Central. I'm a 2N, 1A speaker, and fun fact is my favorite impact debate is global warming. I'm a science major, so I gotta love me some global warming. Alright, so how do you make the most out of these videos? You should do two things. First, take notes, and second, you should rewatch bits you need re-explained. Now that we're kind of getting you into actually what policy debate is all about, it gets confusing really fast. I try to make it as clear as possible, but you should definitely go back and rewatch parts you don't entirely understand. Hopefully we'll have worksheets or supplemental materials that go along with the video, so check out the comments for those. You don't need to memorize everything, you just should be familiar with everything in the video so you can build onto that knowledge for the next set of videos. And finally, your coach may like things differently, or you may like things differently. You may like to debate different style. That's totally okay. This is just a starting point, not an end point. As always, if you want information about alternative styles of debate, definitely comment in the videos, and I will get you hooked up with those resources as soon as possible. So, I have a secret behind winning every single debate. This is a set of skills that you will need to know to win every debate, from novice to varsity to even to college debate like I'm doing now. It's called impact calculus. Impact calculus. So let's break it down. Okay, impact and calculus. So impact. The action of one object coming forcibly into contact with another, causing injury on impact. Yeah, that's kind of like me trying to play soccer. Injury on impact. Second is calculus, a particular method or system of calculation or reasoning. No, it's not where you do double integrals and you do complicated stuff like derivatives. It's just a method or system of calculation or reasoning. So what does this mean? Impact calc is how we decide what matters. So here's the honest truth. Debate's pretty crazy. Our impacts are pretty hyperbolic. Most end in either everyone dying from a nuclear war or everyone being dehumanized and becoming mindless drones of the state. For real. You just have to look past it and see debate impacts as an exaggeration in the name of argument and argumentation and the activity. They actually are a lot of fun. I like debating about extinction. I'm not like a weird, well, okay, I'm a little bit of a weird person, but I'm not like that weird. Really what we do is we use debate impacts as part of the simulation of debate to make it more fun. So first, some vocabulary you need to know. If I were you, I'd get a little highlighter out. First is advantage. It means advantage to the plan. It's an AF argument. It's made in the 1AC, and it is the bad things that doing the plan will prevent. So here's an example. The AF increases aquaculture, which is growing stuff like fish in the ocean, to create a new avenue for food production. Currently, there isn't enough food sources in the world, which will cause food wars. We need to implement aquaculture to prevent this from happening. The advantage is the plan saves us from conflict over food resources. So in the 1AC, which remember is the first affirmative speech, we talk about this as the advantage to doing the plan. Remember back in the very first video when we talk about the 4 parts of an AF? Oh, do you remember? Inherency, plan, advantage, solvency. Yeah, if you don't remember that, go back and rewatch that video. This is the advantage part of the 4 things that the AF has to do. Next is the disadvantage, or a Disad, or a DA. This is short for a disadvantage to the plan. This is a neg argument. It's made in the 1NC, or the first negative constructive, and it describes the negative things caused by the plan. So here's an example. The AF starts a new aquaculture program, which spends a lot of government money. If we spend a lot of money on aquaculture, then we can't fund NASA. If we don't fund NASA, then we can't help develop technology to deflect asteroids. Then, if asteroids come, everyone will die like dinosaurs if they hit the Earth. So the negative thing caused by the plan is an asteroid destroying the Earth. So if we do the plan, then we don't have money for NASA, which means that we all die from an asteroid. Essentially. Okay. Next term, impact. The impact is the final worst thing. So, for example, in the Disad example, like I just read, you can reread this yourself, the impact would be extinction from an asteroid collision. So usually impacts are usually extinction, through a nuclear war, global warming, or biodiversity collapse, or like food wars or whatever. Sometimes an impact will be dehumanization or some kind of ethics-based impact. So it's not extinction, it's just like you live a life worse than extinction. Dun 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 dun. Okay, so which is worse? Food wars, in this case, food wars from the AF advantage or an asteroid collision from the neg disadvantage, if both lead to extinction. Well, we use 3 methods to figure it out. So here's what impact calculus actually is. 3 things: magnitude, probability, and time frame. So what is magnitude? The magnitude is the size of the impact, usually measured in lives lost. So for example, food wars may only involve a few countries who cannot feed their citizens, whereas an asteroid impact would radically change global weather patterns, making the Earth uninhabitable, and extinction, like everybody dies, certain. So food wars, maybe 100,000 people die, making the Earth uninhabitable through an asteroid. Every single person dies, so the magnitude would be larger for the asteroid impact than for food wars. Second is probability. What is the impact? What is the likelihood the impact will happen? So here's another example from the last one. Given the exponential increase in population, the probability that we'll run out of food is much more likely than the probability that we'll get hit by a large enough asteroid to cause extinction. So it's more likely that we'll have a conflict from food wars than for us to get hit by an asteroid. And the third is time frame. So how quickly would the impact happen? So for example, we would all die immediately if an asteroid hit because of the pyroclastic cloud or whatever, whereas it would take a long time to use up enough food resources to cause a major conflict. So the time frame for an asteroid collision would be sooner than the time frame for a war over food resources. Essentially, the risk of the impact, equals magnitude times probability. Okay, so before we go on, make sure that you understand these 3 topics. If you don't, go back, rewatch it, ask videos, ask your coaches, ask your peers, because this is the key to winning every single debate, even top Callie debates. So why does this matter? Impact calc allows us to measure and compare arguments made by the AF and neg. It helps the judge decide who wins the debate. So you'll see all of these terms in all future videos. You'll see magnitude, time frame, probability, impact calc, advantage, disadvantage. So it's really important that you're familiar with the terminology and how we use these arguments in debate. So here below me, the Disads, case debate, counterplan, and Ks are all debate arguments that utilize the tenets of impact calculus. So let's break it down into essentials. So if the risk of the AF advantage is greater than the risk of neg disadvantage, then the AF wins. If the risk of the advantage is less than the risk of the disadvantage, then the neg wins. So here's an activity for you. Finish the sentences using your newly formed risk assessment vocabulary. If the plan saves 1 million lives from disease, but causes the U.S. economy, which causes major nuclear war, blank, 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 the answer is the magnitude of economic collapse is greater than saving 1 million lives, which means that the neg would win. Okay, so that would be the answer to that one. So here are 3 more. Pause the video, write down the answers to these 3, and then I'll go through them after you unpause the video. So pause. Okay, unpause. I'm going to assume that you've done this. Okay, so the second one. If the plan saves 1 million lives from disease but causes a mild economic depression, then the plan has a larger magnitude because saving 1 million lives is a greater risk than a mild economic depression, which means that the AF would win. The third one. If the plan stops extinction but causes global nuclear war, then extinction is greater than global nuclear war, so the plan would win, or the AF would win, because the magnitude of extinction is greater than global nuclear war. The fourth one, if the plan solves but the neg wins and there's little harm and that there's a decent risk the plan crashes the economy, that one's kind of up in the air because we have to debate about that and have more information. I could be a side either way. So, you need to think. Arguments often interrelate. You need to be thinking how, if you win one argument, that argument implicates other arguments in the debate. So there might be, like, for example, if you have an economic collapse, how does that implicate whether or not we can solve for global warming? So here's an example. Let's say the negative wins, the affirmative causes the U.S. economy to collapse. How could that change the implementation of the affirmative plan? Can we create aquaculture if we don't have an economy? Can we? I don't know. That might implicate that. Let's say the affirmative answers the DA by claiming the nuclear war impacts are overblown and the nations will cooperate rather than fight. How could that be used against them? So, like, let's say the AF has an impact that says that if we don't do the plan, then we'll have food resource wars. Well, if nuclear war won't happen because nations will cooperate, won't nations cooperate over conflict over food resources as well? So you have to be careful about how your arguments interrelate with the negatives arguments and also the affirmative argument, and how that can implicate whether your impacts happen or not. So how do you use this in a debate? You use an overview. This is a short introduction to your speech that should be used in all speeches except for the 1AC and the 1NC, where essentially you explain why either the risk of advantage is greater than the risk of the disadvantage, so the AF wins, or the risk of the advantage is less than the risk of the disadvantage, and therefore the neg wins. So which comes first? Magnitude, time frame, or probability? So how does the judge know which is worse? Well, you have to tell them, and you have to explain why you're right. This is what debating is, right? So if a team concedes your impact calculus, you should be jumping for joy. They just made your life easy, right? So if you're like magnitude outweighs time frame, and they're just like yes, or they just don't respond, then magnitude outweighs time frame. You win automatically. But what happens if you are losing the magnitude debate, but you're winning time frame? Or what happens if you're losing the time frame debate, but winning magnitude? What happens if you're losing time frame magnitude but winning probability? Well, I don't know. You have to tell me why the fact that you're winning one part should be the biggest thing in the debate. You have to explain why your impact is worse. For example, if we all die in the short term, even if it's not very probable, that might still be worse than a 100% of total extinction in millions and millions of years. So that's where time frame, short-term extinction, outweighs probability, 100% of extinction in a million years. So you have to make these claims about why winning certain parts of the impact debate are better or worse than winning other parts. So here are some impact calc pro tips. So here are some arguments you can use in debates about why your impact is the worst ever. First, time frame. Why does time frame outweigh everything else? Well, here are 4 reasons. You can only die once. YOLO. Second, intervening actors solve long-term impacts, but not short-term ones. And then you have to explain what those intervening actors are. So, like, let's say that, like, we're definitely going to die from global warming in a million years. Well, you know what? Between now and a million years from now, we could have colonized the moon. We could have developed geoengineering techniques to prevent global warming. There's, like, more time in a long period of time to fix a problem. If we have a short-term impact, you may not be able to, if you have a short-term impact, you may not be able to solve your long-term impact. So if we have a nuclear war in 2 months, we might not be able to have an ocean anymore to be able to solve for global warming. And finally is space. If your impact happens a long time from now, we can always go to space and colonize other planets, which will allow us to not have complete extinction, even if the Earth burns up or there's something crazy that happens, which is your long-term impact. Okay, magnitude. You could say magnitude is the worst because there's no chance for all the amazing things future generations offer. So there's no way for us to understand and know all the amazing things that, like, our grandchildren could do if we all just go extinct, right? The next thing is psychological studies prove that we underestimate large threats, which means that we should take high magnitude impacts such as global warming much more seriously. So that we're psychologically primed to be like, global warming, it's in the millions of years in the future, I'm not going to be alive then, we don't have to worry about it, which prevents us from taking action against those things. And then third, we should strive to protect humans because they're uniquely beneficial to other species. So for example, only humans can prevent species extinction or bring back extinct species, like in that Artemis Fowl book where Artemis goes back in the past because he, like, kills a lemur that he needs in his future self to save. So yeah, we may need to be able to bring something back which only humans can do. And finally, probability. So one thing you should know is that Russian war is more probable than other wars, because there's no hotline, or that warming is scientifically backed. These are things that are inherently more probable. The more probable impacts are the ones that are happening now or systemic. So actually, the most probable impacts are things like poverty, where we know that poverty is happening. We don't need to hyperbolize about some like abstract internal link scenario. We know that it's happening. So those are the things that are most probable. And the best way to weigh, punny, sometimes I include fun puns, probability is when you give reasons why their impacts are not likely, and they haven't given any reasons why your impact isn't likely. So probability, really what it comes down to in debate, is if you read impact defense to their impacts, but they don't read impact defense to yours, then that makes your impacts more probable. If that was confusing, Watch the Disad lecture and that'll make more sense. Finally, the last thing you need to know is turning. No, it's not that out of place song from Les Mis after everybody dies and all the women are like, oh, everybody's dead. That song's called turning. What I'm talking about is what it means to have an impact that turns a case or turns a DA. So pretty much what turning is when your impact causes your opponent's impact to happen. For those overachievers who've already watched the video about disads, this is it. I don't know why it says this is, but it should say it right here. Okay, so here's an example. Your impact is nuclear war and nuclear winter, and your opponent's impact is global warming. So how does nuclear war turn global warming? That is, how does nuclear war make global warming happen? Well, here's a reason that you could explain why. Nuclear war would cause a release of nitrous oxide, which is a pollutant that causes ozone depletion, that destroys the atmospheric layer that protects the Earth from harmful UV rays from the sun, which accelerates warming. So you could say that if we have a short-term nuclear war, then that means that will cause global warming to happen because of the NOx emissions and the breakdown of the ozone layer. So you could say that your impacts actually cause the other team's impacts to happen, which is kind of like a 2-in-1 because not only do you solve yours, but also you also get to solve theirs. Okay? So finally we have a super awesome activity, which is called Callie versus the Horde. So I'm Callie, you're the Horde. I know it's kind of lame because I'm here and you're there, but just play along and it's great practice for impact calc. So here's how it works. My impact will always be global warming because, as I said at the beginning of the video, global warming is my favorite impact. So I'll put a bunch of impacts on the screen, one by one, and you should explain how your impact outweighs on magnitude, time frame, probability, one or all, and how your impact turns warming, aka causes global warming to happen. Okay? So I'm just going to go quickly through these slides. What you should do is, like, when you see the slide, just pause it, read the card, and then come up with the stuff. And then when you have it all written down, you should show it to your teacher, or you should just have it for yourself, and it'll be great practice for impact calculus. If you want to see a really good impact calculus debates, just watch some high school debates on YouTube, and that'll give you more examples about how to do really great impact calculus. So here's the Tickle card. I know, I love how his name's called Tickle, which is my impact. Okay, global warming caused extinction. Also, if you want to practice spreading, maybe practice speed reading these. Okay, so here's the first one, Asian proliferation. So Asian proliferation causes nuclear war. And then I don't know how to say this, Siricone. I'm the worst at pronouncing names at debates, seriously. So read this, do the activity. Here's the next one, Asteroid Collision, Barrette, Bee extinction. I think this is really great, especially Haagen-Dazs's Save the Bees campaign. I think that's awesome. Biodiversity Collapse. Mom. I think that guy's name is Mom. I really appreciate that. Okay, Bioterrorism. Deterrence. Economic decline. And that's the end. Alright, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this was educational. As always, if you have questions or constructive criticism, feel free to comment, and I'll try to get back as soon as I can. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!